So, Fiskama, bonsoir. Hello, everyone, wherever you are. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Naoko Mabon. I'm a curator based in Oban, which is a small town on the west coast of Scotland. I'm facilitating today's event, which is the fifth of the conversation series of the Eco-Creative Cluster project. Eco-Creative Cluster is a project focusing on nature-based materials and dyeing techniques led by the Rockfield Centre, which is a newly refurbished cultural and heritage hub located in the heart of Oban. It's part of the Chart Placemakers Microcluster Networks program in partnership with the Innovation School at Glasgow School of Art, funded by Creative Scotland. The project involves developing a community dye garden with Oban-based textile artist Deborah Gray, who is here with us today, and local volunteers in the ground of the Rockfield Centre. Oh, that's Deborah. The produce of the dye garden will be used in workshops and artworks using techniques such as natural dyeing, ecoprinting, and shibori. In parallel to this dye garden development with myself, the project also aims to weave a wider network of practitioners working across different localities in the world with a sustainable and ecological approach. So this virtual conversation series is part of this network weaving strand of the project. And the fifth practitioner we meet is Boubacar Doumbia, who is joining us today from Ségou in Mali. So thank you so much, Boubacar, for today. Merci beaucoup, Boubacar.
Merci. Oui, à vous de même.
Boubacar is one of the founding members of Groupe Bogolan Kasobané, which is an association of 6 painters, 1 woman and 5 men, who finished their studies at the National Institute of Arts of Mali in 1979. Kasobané is the initial of the names of the founding members. So Ka, K-A, stands for Candiola Kribari, Kretege Dembele, and S-O, stands for Sremane Goho, and Ba, B-A, stands for Baba Keita and Boubacar Doumbia, and lastly, Ne, N-E, stands for Nene Tiam. The objectives of the group are to use the Bogolan technique as a means of expression and to safeguard traditional techniques of natural dyeing while improving them and using them as a means of economic development. Boubacar is also the promoter of Ndomo, which is a social enterprise dealing with training and integration for young people who have not had a chance to continue their study or attend a school. Ndomo follows Groupe Bogolan Kasobané's objectives while associating them with Malian societal values for job creation within the layers of society. I will stop here, and I would like to move on to the introductory part with 3 videos about Groupe Bogolan Kasobané and Ndomo. After that, we, as Alessa said, a recording of a short interview with Boubacar, which will be followed by a live Q&A session. So if you have questions, as Alessa said, that please feel free to pop your questions in the chat box. We will come back to that. And for this event, well, Alessa mentioned, we have a generous and wonderful French-English translation support from Hannah Gray, who happened to be one of the daughters of Deborah. So thank you so much, Hannah, in advance for your support today. So, okay, let's move on to the introductory video, all of which were translated in English as best as we could. And we will dubbed by, they were dubbed by Alistair, whose background is amazingly in theater. So thank you so much, Alistair. So the first video is about Bogolan, Groupe Bogolan Kasobané, created by Tekoha Ndau, who is a multimedia director, teacher, researcher, and a PhD student at Savoy Mont Blanc University in France. Tekoha is also a photographer and shared his wonderful photographs for our event posters. So I don't know Tekoha is in this space, but thank you so much. So I'll share the screen. Hang on. So. Alistair, are you ready?
I am.
Okay.
You'll reduce the volume of the video a little bit.
Yep.
So Bogolan is a Bamaran word. The Bogo means clay earth. Bogolan is a name given to the technique, but originally it was known as Bogolan fini. It means the results of earth on fabric. This traditional dyeing technique belongs to all of the Mande group. There are a number of ethnicities in the Mande, one of which is the Bambara. And it's particularly the Bambara who have developed Bogolan in relation to other ethnic groups. The Kasobané Group was created around 1978, after we left the National Institute of Arts. The initiative came from Mr. Kanjura Koibai, who did his final thesis on this dyeing technique. On leaving the National Institute for the Arts, everything I did after leaving the Institute with the group was research on traditional techniques in order to put it to use for young people. It was a dream for me to see young people with their past, their product, Africans with an African product, and African knowledge, which was totally renewed. So that was our mission from 1978 to today. In 1978, we had the courage to go to Markala in the Ségou region, where we sold some pieces of fabric. And it's with this money that we set up the workshop in 1978. In the years to come, we had our first exhibition, the 21st September 1978. An artist has a very strong ego. It's logical because creativity is like that. It's not easy, and we all have our own ideas. But the group, taking its inspiration from Bogolan, thought that the techniques of Bogolan were in collective work. So because of that, when the group was created, we said that we didn't want to stay making individual works, but communal works, which would belong to the group. The we is very important in African culture. That's why we will say a Sanofu mask, which is an ethnic group in Mali. We will not say a Kretigui or Sanon mask, but the Sanofu mask. We will not say the Chiwara or of Zan or Ngolo, but the Bambara Chiwara mask. That's why we wanted the group to adapt to this African reality. Instead of saying me, we will say the Bogolan Kasobané Group. There are two techniques that have been taught and transmitted from generation to generation. Negweni Fiman in Bambara means decoration in black, and Nigweni Diaman in Bambara means decoration in white. And the Niagweni Fiman, or the decoration in black, concerning this technique, the fabric is first soaked in the Ngalaman plant, which are the leaves of a plant called the Guru of Africa. But it has the name Alogus in Latin. So there are two possibilities to get the color. Either you crush the leaves, you put water on them, and after 30 minutes, you get the ochre yellow color. That's the first possibility. There's another possibility where you boil the leaves to get the ochre yellow color. Once you have a solution, we soak the fabric in it, and we leave the fabric until it's well soaked and the color has taken. And we take it out and spread it in the sun. And the only woman in the group. That's because they were feminine creations, so they needed a woman to give her opinions and present them. Independently of that, for the artistic creation of our paintings, we all collaborated together. And these 5 men were like brothers to me, because we collaborated really well. With the death of our brother, Koulibaly, I became the president of the group Bogolan Kasobané. This means we must continue to fight to promote Bogolan, our cultural heritage. From 1979, with the creation of the Kasobané Group, we tried to firstly fix our objectives, like safeguarding traditional dyeing techniques, popularizing these techniques and their innovative use by the under-30s. It's not about training young people and then leaving them in the street. That's why we chose the name Ndomo for our enterprise, because its mission is to train young people and to guide them through life. We may not have the same members today, but our mission is the same. Our students come to us of their own accord. They are trained for 2 years. We see that they are integrated into daily life, and we guide them until they're able to take responsibility for themselves.
atelier Ndomo du Groupe Kasobané.
Naoko, I think the audio on the video should be a little louder. I couldn't really hear any of it, so it's quite hard to go along with what's being said.
Right. Okay.
I don't know how it sounds to other people, but it was very quiet for me.
Hang on, sorry.
Just a little for the next one. A little more.
So So the second video, the second video is about Ndomo, created by Sahelian.com, which is a premier news site of the Sahel. So let me share the screen again. Sorry, let me start.
Yeah, I think start again. Yeah. Thank you. Created in the 1990s, the Ndomo Centre in Ségou specializes in the production of artisanal products, in particular Bogolan. Over the years, the centre has become a training school for young job seekers. The young people learn everything they need to be able to do this themselves. What's interesting about Ndomo is the bringing together of young people in the same age group. The training is an initiation, and then they're able to participate in active life. Here, nothing is lost. Everything used in making the Bogolan is reused. Here, the fabric is soaked in vegetable dye to have an ochre yellow color. The fabric decorated with clay is washed over here, giving a cloudy water. At the moment, we use too much water. We consume more than 1,000 liters a day. In order not to waste it, after the fabric is washed, we pour the water in here. In this first pit, the water is decanted, and the clay settles at the bottom and the water rises above it. Between the two pits, there's just a large wall with a window at the top of it. And when the water reaches the level of the window, it runs into the second pit, where there are layers of charcoal and sand. So this cloudy water is filtered in a way. Next, it goes into a large reservoir with a pump attached to it and a tap, and it's used to water all the plants on the site because it doesn't contain any chemicals. Today, Ndomo is a centre of excellence for Bogolan and contributes to the social and professional integration of young people. In 2010, it was nominated for the Enterprise category in the Harubuntu competition for bringers of hope and creators of riches in Africa.
I've been directing films for almost 4 decades, and I've picked up a few things along the way, but really...
Apologies. Okay, so the third video is about Ndomo, directed by Sheikh Amara Turi, who is a journalist and communicator. This video was published on the YouTube channel of the Mali Info Culture TV news site last February. So
Can I, oh yes, I think there was a microphone switched on somewhere.
sorry, let me share the screen. Sorry about this. Okay.
Le Bogolan, un tissu vestimentaire qui est très utilisé dans les milieux.
Bogolan is a clothing textile which is used in a lot of Bamaran areas. This fabric and the process for making it has had an importance beyond the country's borders. To know more, we visited a Bogolan workshop called Lundomo. I'm Boubacar Doumbia. I'm the promoter of this center. And the idea is to promote and showcase the potential of the region. The region produces a lot of cotton, most of which is sold elsewhere. Only a small amount is worked with locally. We wanted to promote our cotton by using our traditional dyeing techniques. As the centre's promoter affirms, the Ndomo project exists to promote local cotton and dyeing techniques and to combat unemployment. The concept behind Ndomo came about in 1990. It was a social enterprise which had nothing to do with the Western ways of doing business, an enterprise which functions on the basis of our societal values. As Ndomo workers using cotton as our basic material and traditional dyeing techniques, we make more contemporary designs which are sold not just nationally, but also internationally, in order that people who do this work can live decently. We don't have any particular structure here. People work independently. People work both collaboratively and on individual projects, and are responsible for themselves. There are almost a dozen master craftsmen and 7 or 8 who have a more organizational role. Bogolan is a dyed fabric made from natural elements that are cotton, leaves, and clay. A number of different plants are used. They are all classed as what we call plants of tannin. These are plants which contain a lot of the tannin dye. We do the dye by boiling the plants, but then when they are washed, the dye goes very gently. An interior courtyard and terrace serve as drying areas for the fabric, and 2 large buildings which are used as boutiques and storerooms. In the inner courtyard, there's a terrace which we use as a drying room. 2 big buildings made of bamboo are used as a shop and for storage. These fabrics carry messages about daily life and family, which are designed by the older women. There's a real literary dissertation on the fabrics from the signs. These symbols were created by these same women and passed on by them. And they used these symbols to make literary compositions with themes related to peace in the family, peace in the community. And when these fabrics are worn by women, everybody understands, and it allows everybody to behave properly in society.
Great. Thank you so much, Arista. That's wonderful. So I will just carry on sharing the next one, which is a recording of a short interview with Boubacar. Just 3 questions, but yeah, Boubacar recorded his answer, so I'll share that with you. Just 1 minute.
L'Indomo est une entreprise solidaire et sociale qui s'occupe de la formation des jeunes.
Sorry, let me, I don't know how to, let me start again.
I think if you just click on the screen, Naoko, it should go away.
Click on the screen.
L'Indomo est une entreprise solidaire et sociale qui s'occupe de la formation des jeunes et leur insertion dans la vie active tout en utilisant les techniques traditionnelles de teinture. Pour cela, on travaille avec le coton, on réalise des accessoires vestimentaires et d'intérieur qui sont vendus au niveau du site. Ces jeunes travaillent sur le site afin de gagner leur vie. Donc, ce travail continue durant la semaine, durant les mois et des années. Le Ndomo ressemble à un véritable marché du travail où les artisans se regroupent pour faire face à des grosses commandes et à des travaux individuels. En dehors du travail collectif, chaque jeune est libre de réaliser des travaux d'ordre individuel. Après la vente de ces produits, le montant revient à l'intéressé. Pour faire fonctionner la structure, nous prenons 10% sur la vente des travaux collectifs et 10% sur la vente des travaux d'ordre individuel. C'est ce montant qui sert à faire fonctionner la structure. Chaque jeune qui évolue sur le site bénéficie d'un accompagnement. Pour l'accompagnement, après avoir réalisé des travaux d'ordre collectif et des travaux d'ordre individuel, le montant que les jeunes gagnent est en quelque sorte déposé au niveau d'un compte d'épargne individuel. Et les jeunes se servent des montants pour faire l'achat de tissus afin de pouvoir faire des travaux d'ordre individuel. Le groupe Kasobané et le Ndomo s'occupent tous deux de la fabrication des textiles traditionnels, tout en utilisant des plantes et d'autres produits naturels. Et ces produits, nous les trouvons au niveau du pays sans difficulté. Après avoir utilisé en quelque sorte ces produits, on a mis au point un système pour pouvoir recycler les déchets solides et liquides. Et ce sont les feuilles des plantes qui donnent les couleurs qui sont recyclées pour en faire du compost. Et après, on a les écorces qui sont également recyclées pour en faire également juste la potasse. Et l'eau est recyclée et après le recyclage, cette eau revient à la nature pour l'arrosage des plantes. L'argile est recyclée et après cette argile revient également à la terre. Au niveau de la structure, l'Indomo a tissé des relations de réseautage avec d'autres ateliers de teinture. Et avec ce réseau de réseautage, il s'agit de s'entraider pour pouvoir vendre les produits et de s'entraider pour former également d'autres jeunes par-ci, par-là. Et par exemple, à 80 km d'ici, de Ségou, on a un centre qui s'appelle le Carrefour, où il y a Isaac Fané et ses collègues qui travaillent sur la même méthode que le Ndomo.
Merci. Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much. So that's the...
L'Indomo est une entreprise solidaire et sociale.
Lots of technical things happening. So thank you. So that's the videos and short interview with Boubacar. And then now let's move on to the Q&A session with everyone. So if you have questions, feel free to pop in the chat box, or you can raise your hand as well. I'll ask Alistair to help me to...
Yes, there's a couple of questions already in the chat box, and I'm hoping at this point that Hannah will be spectacularly on board to instantly translate these.
We'll see. Yeah, you have a couple of questions already. Alors, Boubacar, on a deux questions déjà, d'après avoir regardé les vidéos. Donc, d'abord, la première question, c'est que est-ce que vous pourriez nous expliquer un peu plus sur la terre, l'argile qui est utilisée dans le processus? D'où vient cette argile? Est-ce que là contient minéral spécifique? Et est-ce que l'argile change la couleur de la teinture jaune sur le tissu? Et n'hésite pas à me dire si je peux répéter des aspects de la question. Je sais qu'il y a plein de contenu là-dessus.
OK. Donc, je vais répondre au fur et à mesure. Concernant la première question, expliquer la terre utilisée. Le bogolan qui est couramment utilisé au Mali, bon, c'est la terre provenant du fleuve ou la terre provenant des marigots qui est utilisée. Et bon, c'est une terre qui a une couleur grise. Et là, on prend cette terre, c'est-à-dire la boue d'argile, ou bien la glaise venant du fleuve ou bien du marigot, et c'est cette glaise qui est immédiatement utilisée pour faire le travail. Bon, donc, du point de vue composition chimique, cette terre contient naturellement le fer. Lorsqu'il a l'eau là-dessus durant longtemps, on obtient une sorte d'oxyde de fer. Et c'est cette forme d'oxyde de fer qui est en contact avec la plante qui a été utilisée pour teindre, qui donne la réaction chimique au noir. Ça va? Bon,
Oui.
Oui? Je vous écoute?
Oui.
Et bon, comme deuxième question, est-ce que cette terre change la couleur jaune du tissu? Bon, cela dépend du lavage. Comme ce sont des teintes naturelles utilisées pour faire le travail, par exemple, l'argile en contact avec le tannin de la plante jaune donne le noir. Mais si le tissu n'est pas bien lavé, on a la terre peut s'étendre sur le tissu et ça peut changer en quelque sorte la couleur du jaune. Mais si c'est bien lavé, ça ne fait rien. Mais au fur et à mesure qu'on lave le tissu, la couleur pâlisse, c'est-à-dire la couleur s'en va tout doucement, mais pas brusquement. Et du noir, on vient jusqu'au gris avec le nombre de lavages au fil des mois. Voici la réponse aux deux questions.
Merci beaucoup. Okay, so to translate, so with regards to the first question was to find out a bit more about the clay that's used and where it comes from. So currently there are two different types of clay that are principally used, and as far as I could understand, having very poor geography of Mali, I believe they come from different parts of Mali, and that one in particular is used to give a kind of glazing effect, and that's one that can be used immediately. In terms of the mineral content, the most important thing is that there's a strong iron content in the clay, and it's the oxidization of this iron when it comes into contact with the plants that gives you the black color. And the third question was about whether the clay, using different kinds of clay, can change the colour. And apparently what it all comes down to is washing, and how well you wash the fabric after the clay has been applied. So if you wash it very well, the clay shouldn't leave any marks. You should just be left with the black oxidization that occurs between the clay and the tannins of the plants. But if it's not as well washed, it can change the colour, and if I understood correctly, that can be used to obtain a sort of grey colour, if that's what you're after. Okay, so next question.
There was one about the resist techniques.
Yeah, getting quite technical here. Not only do I not know anything about the geography of Mali, I don't really know anything about dyeing. I'm going to give it a go. Okay, pour la deuxième question, la dame qui pose la question a constaté que dans les vidéos, on voit que les gens utilisent une substance, un produit blanc pour démarquer là où on ne veut pas les couleurs, j'imagine. Est-ce que vous pourriez nous expliquer qu'est-ce que c'est cette substance, ce produit?
Ok. Traditionnellement, bon, si vous prenez le Bogolan, on a autrefois le Bogolan classique. Avec le Bogolan classique, on a deux types de tissus. Un tissu avec une couleur de fond végétal jaune ou ocre rouge et avec un dessin noir. Et le deuxième style, c'est un Bogolan avec le fond en noir et le dessin est blanc. Bon, comment obtenir ce blanc? Bon, en faisant le travail, la femme qui fait le travail laisse en quelque sorte des parties ocre jaune. Et après, elle va utiliser le savon pour déteindre la couleur ocre jaune afin d'avoir le tissu initial qui a la couleur blanche. Et ce savon, autrefois, était fabriqué avec le beurre de karité plus la potasse provenant de la cendre de bois. Et en mettant ce savon sur la partie jaune du dessin, le tissu est mis au soleil pendant un certain nombre de jours. Avec la chaleur du soleil, le savon va ronger tout doucement la couleur végétale jaune pour donner le blanc. Après le lavage, le savon s'en va et on a un blanc, mais pas un blanc blanc, mais c'est un blanc sale. Autrefois, c'était comme ça. Actuellement, avec la commercialisation du Bogolan, donc on prend le savon, soit ce savon traditionnellement fait, ou bien n'importe quel savon, c'est-à-dire le savon de Marseille, comme vous voyez, et on mélange avec de l'eau et on applique. Si on a deux possibilités, on peut appliquer ce savon sur la partie jaune, mais cette fois-ci, il faut attendre une dizaine de jours pour qu'on puisse avoir le blanc. Mais si on est pressé, on peut ajouter une toute petite quantité de javel, mais pas beaucoup. Et là, le savon en contact avec la javel va en quelque sorte ronger tout doucement le jaune pour avoir le blanc. Et c'est cette matière, le blanc que vous avez vu, c'est le savon. C'est le savon qui est appliqué à la partie jaune pour avoir le blanc.
D'accord, merci. Très intéressant. Je vais juste chercher la traduction de javel parce que je le connais, mais je ne sais pas comment le dire en anglais. So, very interesting answer to this. So the question was, what's the white substance being used in the videos as a resist? And the answer is that it's soap. Traditionally, there were two kind of traditional designs, or not quite designs, I suppose, two traditional ways of making these Bogolan pieces. The first was you would start with a yellow or ochre red background and you would have black designs on it. And the other one would be a black background with white designs. Traditionally, the white was obtained by using shea butter, a soap made from shea butter and potash, and it would be applied to the areas that they are. Thanks, Francesca. I just googled that. It would be applied to the areas where you wanted white areas. It would be left in the sun for a number of days, and once it was washed off, it would leave you with the white. It's not so different, I suppose, using the traditional methods. Today they would use either this traditional soap made of shea butter and potash, or just normal soap mixed with a little water. And similarly to the traditional methods, you can apply it to the areas, leave it for a few days and wash it off. But if you're in a bit more of a hurry, you can mix it with a very small amount of bleach to have that sort of immediate effect. I hope that makes sense to people who understand more about dyeing techniques than I do.
So, sorry, we've got so much work to do here. It's brilliant. The next question is an eco question about the effects of climate change and
No.
Very interesting question. Ok, pour la prochaine question, on a quelqu'un qui s'intéresse à ce que vous dites sur les effets écologiques des techniques du Bogolan. Et la question, c'est est-ce que, à travers des années, vous avez constaté des changements, des impacts dans votre travail du changement climatique, du réchauffement de la Terre?
Très bien. Si vous prenez cette couleur naturelle, c'est une couleur totalement naturelle. Bon, prenons par exemple les plantes qui sont utilisées. On a le ngalama, les feuilles sont utilisées. Pendant l'hivernage, c'est pendant l'hivernage qu'on obtient en quelque sorte ces feuilles. Avec la pluie, ces arbres deviennent touffus. Et il faut les délayer, c'est-à-dire il faut couper les branches. Mais on ne les coupe pas. Et c'est la période propice pour récolter les feuilles. Et en récoltant les feuilles, on les conserve durant toute l'année et on travaille avec au fur et à mesure. Et là, bon, pas de problème avec ces feuilles, parce que même si on ne coupe pas ces feuilles, à partir du mois de janvier, avec le froid qui rentre, parce qu'on se trouve dans le Sahel, avec le froid, toutes les feuilles tombent, sans exception. Avant que les feuilles ne tombent, donc ceux qui travaillent avec la teinture, ils récoltent les feuilles. Bon, à ce niveau, le problème ne se pose pas. Concernant l'impeku, l'écorce des raisins qui donne la couleur ocre rouge, bon, on coupe les branches de l'arbre, c'est-à-dire on délègue les branches et on enlève l'écorce. Et c'est cette écorce qu'on fait bouillir pour avoir la couleur ocre rouge. Et en coupant en quelque sorte les branches de l'arbre, bon, ça fait du bien parce que ça renforce en quelque sorte l'arbre en question. Et donc, il y a également des arbustes qui sont utilisés pour avoir juste le jaune également. Et Tchangara, c'est une autre plante. Et ce sont ces feuilles. Bon, avant que les feuilles ne tombent, on récolte les feuilles pour en faire en quelque sorte la teinture. Sur le plan écologique, bon, pas de problème. Cela ne détruit pas la plante parce que du moment que les feuilles tombent, si on les récupère pour faire en quelque sorte la teinture, donc je crois que cela ne fait rien à la nature. Bon. Lorsqu'on utilise ces feuilles, du point de vue écologique, après avoir récupéré la couleur, on recycle les feuilles pour en faire du compost. Et ce compost revient à la terre. Et les jardiniers utilisent ce compost pour faire les travaux, pour qu'ils puissent avoir en quelque sorte une bonne récolte. Et l'écorce de raisin qui est bouillie pour pouvoir en faire en quelque sorte le rouge, après avoir bouilli en quelque sorte l'écorce, au lieu de jeter les restes des écorces qui ne contiennent plus de couleur, on les fait sécher au soleil. Après le séchage, on les recycle. Pour les recycler, on les réutilise comme combustible pour faire chauffer d'autres écorces. Et là, ça va nous donner beaucoup de cendres. Et cette cendre, on met l'eau là-dessus et on obtient un liquide qui est la potasse. Et c'est cette potasse qu'on utilise beaucoup dans la teinture pour accentuer la couleur. Et il arrive à un moment où la potasse ne contient plus la cendre ne contient plus de potasse, en ce moment, au lieu de jeter cette cendre, on prend la cendre et on déverse ça dans le compost en fabrication et ça enrichit le compost. Et donc, en regardant le cycle, vous allez voir, les feuilles sont recyclées pour avoir du compost, les écorces sont recyclées pour avoir de la potasse et ces écorces pour avoir la potasse et la potasse intervient dans le travail. En un mot, tous les ingrédients, c'est-à-dire l'arbre, les feuilles, les écorces, tout est recyclé et tout revient à la terre et tout cela fait du bien pour la terre. Okay.
Est-ce que vous avez des problèmes pour obtenir de l'eau pour utiliser dans vos techniques?
Oui, on utilise beaucoup d'eau dans notre technique parce que les tissus décorés avec la boue, il faut nécessairement enlever la boue pour avoir le noir. Et pour cela, on utilise de l'eau. On utilise beaucoup d'eau. Après avoir lavé le tissu dans des récipients en matière plastique, on obtient une eau bouilleuse, une eau qui contient beaucoup de terre. Et on a mis au point un système pour recycler cette eau. On a deux grandes fosses côte à côte et les deux grandes fosses sont séparées par un mur. Et en haut du mur, on a une fenêtre. Dès que l'eau bouilleuse rentre dans la première fosse, il y a une décantation. L'argile va venir en bas parce que l'argile pèse lourd et l'eau surmonte l'argile. Et dès que l'eau arrive au niveau de la fenêtre, c'est déversé dans la seconde fosse. Et dans cette seconde fosse, on a des couches de charbon et de sable qui filtrent l'eau. Et l'eau filtrée est récupérée dans un grand réservoir. Et sur ce réservoir, on a monté une pompe manuelle. Et la pompe manuelle fait monter l'eau dans le petit château en haut. Et dès qu'on ouvre le robinet en bas, on récupère cette eau pour arroser les plantes parce que ça ne contient pas de produits chimiques. Mais comme on a à tout moment l'eau rentre, on ne peut pas tout conserver. À notre niveau, on conserve 1,5 mètre d'eau pour l'arrosage de la plante et le reste est évacué. Et ce reste qui est évacué va dans un étang où on a planté le nénuphar. Le nénuphar, c'est une plante aquatique. Et le rôle du nénuphar, c'est de contrôler la qualité de l'eau. Si le nénuphar vit, ça veut dire que cette eau n'est pas polluée. Si le nénuphar meurt, ça veut dire que l'eau est polluée. Mais le service des assainissements nous a demandé d'analyser la qualité de l'eau. Après l'analyse, on nous a donné un quitus, c'est-à-dire un papier qui montre que ce n'est pas une eau nuisible parce que ça ne contient pas de produits chimiques. Et au lieu de laisser cette eau dans l'étang, on a expérimenté la pisciculture avec une variété de poissons et cela a marché. Et présentement, dans cette eau recyclée et qui s'en va dans l'étang, nous sommes en train d'élever du poisson. Donc, et là, sur le plan écologique, donc, le tout revient à la terre et là, bon, ça ne détruit pas du tout la nature.
Merci. So I think the headline of the response is no. I think they're not particularly impacted by the effects of climate change, but they're clearly at Ndomo very conscious of the impact that their own work has. In terms of the way in which they obtain their materials, of course, the leaves and the bark of certain trees are extremely important to them, and they're obviously dependent on the weather to be able to obtain those. In terms of the leaves, they can collect them all at the same time and then use them throughout the year. And if I understood correctly, in the part of Mali where they are, in January, the trees lose all their leaves naturally, so they have no problems on that level. They harvest the leaves and they can store them and use them throughout the year. In terms of the bark, in order to obtain the bark that they need for their work at the right time, they cut the branches from the trees, but they do so in a way that is good for the trees, I suppose a sort of pruning. Boubacar described it as reinforcing the trees. And then, of course, there's everything that they do on an ecological level within their work. So we've already seen in the videos the number of systems that they have in place to ensure that, for example, the leaves are all composted when the bark has been used as part of the dyeing process, they burn it to obtain ash, which they then dilute to obtain potash, and they actually use that to accentuate the colour in their products. And when the ashes are exhausted such that they can't be used in the actual sort of fabrication process anymore, they're added to the compost and it enriches them. We've seen in the videos the system that they have in place to ensure that although they use an awful lot of water, they are able to reuse as much of that as possible. I won't sort of take us through the whole system in the video again, but of course a lot of that water is able to be reused to water the plants. One point that isn't in the videos is the water which can't be used to water the plants is used to grow water lilies, which themselves purify the water that they're grown in. And at a certain point, the water that they were using in this way was inspected and found to be extremely clean. And exactly as Naoko says, they're now able to raise fish in it.
Brilliant. There's a couple more messages there. One is just a statement really, but it's worth maybe saying about Lee's saying that she's loving the images and patterns carrying symbolic meanings and messages can be understood by the community, which is very inspiring. I think it's worth saying that. And then there's a question from Sheila about how many people have you trained this year?
Donc d'abord, c'est juste un commentaire qu'un des gens qui assistent à l'atelier a posté. Et c'est juste pour dire que c'est... je vais juste retrouver mes phrases là. Qu'elle aime bien que les images et les motifs sont utilisés pour porter un message symbolique qui peut être compris par tout le monde dans la communauté, et c'est très inspirant d'en savoir. Et après, on a une autre question qui demande combien des jeunes avez vu formés cette année?
Notre formation, c'est totalement différent d'une formation académique où on regroupe beaucoup de jeunes à la fois. Non, c'est une entreprise à vocation sociale. Bon, il y a non seulement la formation, en dehors de la formation, il y a l'insertion. On fait les deux à la fois, formation et insertion dans la vie active. Et pour cela, bon, nous n'avons pas besoin de prendre beaucoup de personnes parce que c'est une entreprise école, une entreprise qui est autonome. Bon, là, bon, ce n'est pas financé par aucune personne ou bien aucune organisation. C'est l'entreprise qui se prend totalement en charge. Bon, on reçoit les commandes et les commandes sont en quelque sorte gérées par les maîtres artisans qui sont installés dans l'atelier et par les jeunes qui sont en formation. Et ces jeunes qui sont en formation ne dépassent pas 5 ou 6 personnes. Parce que c'est une formation qui prend approximativement 2 années. Et donc, dès qu'on termine la formation de ces 6 personnes, on les insère dans la vie active et on prend d'autres personnes. Parce qu'en prenant beaucoup de personnes, donc on ne peut pas faire face à des grandes commandes qui demandent une spécialisation pour les travaux. On travaille petit à petit. Mais bon, pour qu'on puisse travailler avec beaucoup de personnes, il faut que l'atelier de production soit totalement différent de l'atelier de formation. Mais nous n'avons pas cette possibilité aujourd'hui de faire. Parce que tout ce que nous faisons, nous prenons ça en charge. Personne ne nous aide. T'as compris?
Oui, merci. So the question was about how many people NOMO have trained this year. It's a really interesting response. So Boubacar has explained that what they do is totally different to academic training. It's not about sort of grouping people together and putting them through the same process at the same time, because as we've heard from the videos, their focus is not just on training, but also on integration. They don't need a lot of people to be participating in this work at the same time. They're a self-sustaining, self-financing enterprise. When they receive their orders, the work on these orders is managed by the master artists and the trainees. So to get to the crux of the question, they take on maybe 5 or 6 people at a time, and the training lasts around 2 years. And one of the reasons for these small numbers is that you need a certain degree of specialization. So if you have a lot of people trying to work on the same project, you're not going to reach that same level of specialization and quality. So they prefer small, to work in small quantities, little by little, the words people have used. And he finished by saying, production and training are they're not the same thing. So you have to take that into account.
Okay, there's a couple of more general sort of thanks. We have to watch the time. We're a little bit here. The compliments and thanks from Fernanda in Brazil, saying it's wonderful to see the opportunity to see these traditional techniques from Mali, and from Albert Torres, wondering if they could receive students from abroad wanting to attend in Domo to learn and create arts. Anyway, what I will do at the end, they have a website with a contact detail. In fact, I shall post that right now. That's on the screen. And I don't see any other actual questions. And I don't know if you've seen any, Naoko or Hannah.
No, I think, yeah, that's that. If anyone doesn't have anything just now.
Yeah, if anyone wants to put their hand up or say something, feel free.
But that's very interesting. Very interesting that all about integration, and then that relate to what I think hang on, who was that I think Kretege said in the video that this idea is very important in the African culture. This I think there is a resonance to that. Very interesting. Rather than individual, well, individual is important as well, but more like a collectiveness. Collectivity is very important. So if there is no questions.
Yeah, I don't see any more questions at the moment, and it's about 8:10 now. So yeah. Can I just say, I'll let you wind up, but I just wanted to say, for me, this has been fantastic as well. I'm watching the passion and commitment from Boubacar was so inspiring, and also the quality of the work. I'm sure we all know what we want for Christmas, and the website's there on the list. Also want to say, Hannah, sensational job. That's brilliant. That's been brilliant. Thank you so much for doing that. I shall now be quiet and hand over to Naoko.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, well, if you remember, you forgot to ask questions or you wanted to say something, if you remember later on, then please feel free to send us emails or message through social medias, so on. That would be great. And then on behalf of the project team, Eco Creative Cluster team, I'd like to say once again, well, thank you so much to Boubacar for sharing his and his fellow artists' practice today. And merci beaucoup, Boubacar. I don't know the more, I would like to say more, but yeah, merci beaucoup, sincerely.
Merci.
And also our warmest thanks to, as Arisa mentioned, to Hannah brilliant job. Thank you so much. And Deborah, of course, and Alistair, brilliant voiceover. Thank you so much. And Tekoha, Sahelian.com, Sheikh. I don't know Sheikh. I saw his face, but maybe he's not here anymore. But thank you for your support. And my good friend Francesca and my husband Leslie also helped in French translation as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for your brilliant and generous support as always. And yeah, to make this happen. So thank you so much. And then of course, everyone to come along tonight. So thank you so much. And this is for now, for just now, and the final conversation of the series, but please keep your eyes on Rockfield Centre's website or social media channels of any updates of the project. And for one immediate update, we will have a workshop this Saturday, don't we, Deborah?
Yes, we have. We're doing our first using plants to colour fabric on Saturday at the Rockfield Centre. I have a feeling it's almost fully booked, if not completely full. But, you know, if you've missed it and you want to do it, we can always do it again another time.
Yeah, so that's happening. And I can see our colleagues here, Fernanda and Lucille. I saw Lucille briefly. And then, yeah, those international friends and colleagues will be hopefully joining to this workshop as some part. So yeah, keep your eye on the Rockfield Centre's website and social medias, and we will see you soon.